Part 1. Why do I do these contests? There used to be a different reason. When I was younger, I participated in webtoons comic contests. They're a big comic company tied to, I think, Naver, right, is the original one. They also run Line, which is its whole other thing. It's a texting app. And then, fun fact for people who don't know it, they also run Studio Lyco, the company that helps create Alien Stage. If you don't know Alien Stage, don't worry about it. Anyways, I've done these comic contests every 2-ish years. When I was 14, 16, 18, and now 21, because this contest is in 2025 instead of an even year like 2024. The 3 comics I made were all for a very, very specific reason. What is that reason, you may be asking? Give me your money. Give me your money, Webtoon. I need money to survive. Unfortunately, I do need a little bit of compensation. I mean, it's like the dream, too, you know, to have a comic successful enough that you can draw and then get paid for drawing. Although, considering current webcomicking situations, especially under gigantic corporations, you will see this goal change. Really, right now at this point, I do these contests as a way to gauge my skills every 2-ish years. It lets me try out short or long stories stuck in my head, and is external pressure as opposed to the poor systems of focus my ADHD brain deals with when it comes to comicking. Because even when the comic I'm making is something I've wanted to create for a long time, I physically cannot do it unless I have some type of deadline screaming in my ear. Now that you know my reasons, let me show you my pride and joy. My failures. Part 2, let me see your failures. My first comics were Vampire's Ire, Pobrecita, and a one-shot called Coward's Bet. But if you look up the first 2 comics, you will realize they don't exist anymore. I have the files, don't worry, but look, when you make comics and stories and art, sometimes they are quite old, and looking at them makes you realize that they are a tad bit outdated art-wise and story-wise, which makes them great embarrassment factor-wise. Vampire's Ire was discontinued after 16 chapters, but it was about this adopted girl named Luck, who was born a vampire in a Renaissance Italy/Japan-inspired region. She suppresses biting instincts with little suppressor rings on her teeth, and is trying to get recognition for vampires from a council of city inventors by creating inventions. If it sounds quite absurd, it is. It's the fun part of stories, but also, looking back, it's quite messy in its execution. She has this dog named Benji, and while she's going over to get to the city that all the plot's supposed to happen in, she gets, scratched by an animal and has a hallucinogenic toxin injected by the animal, and she bites Benji, and literally he loses a limb. I don't know what was going on in 14-year-old me's head. It's also a post-war scenario, and it was going to have romance with one of the council members in it. It's so many elements, so many. I could not decide what the hell I was doing. But I do think it's really interesting to look back on, specifically because it starts a theming that I didn't realize I was doing until I wrote the script. I have a tendency to write this very specific theme within stories, which is that characters will go through something where they've hurt someone, whether intentionally or unintentionally, and then they have to learn to live with that. They apologize, they work through it, and they still have to function as a person in society, which is a very true thing. I think it's just something I'm used to using as a storytelling element. Here's an extra fun fact, too. The person who adopted Luck, her dad is trans. One of the comments caught that, and I remember reading it when I was 15 or something and being like, yes! Oh, that's so cool that they got it! I don't know, it made me happy. I also really adored different side characters that I made for the story. But honestly, it was a hodgepodge, and that's okay. I remember when I submitted it to the contest, I was devastated when it didn't get an honorable mention in any place, which honestly was a bit absurd of an assumption on my part. I think part of it was jealousy, long-rooted in seeing other friends compete in the same contest and the strength in their stories and art. Instead of that uplifting me, it just all kind of festered into an envy mixed with depression and general self-doubt that I had, and honestly I had a really personality at the time. So I am so glad, as you may have realized, that is something that I have improved on. I am really happy that I made the choice to do a Renaissance Italy and Japan fusion. It's just such a cool concept, genuinely. I'm stealing it for whenever I decide to do it again. It's fun. The other thing is that I got better at paneling, I got better at my execution of art, and even if my storytelling was a bit it was a bit push or pull, I still did it. Pobrecita was the next story I did. It was a tragedy 5-shot, aka 5-chapter story I did for the short story contest within the brain category. I think it was brain and feels were the two, but it's been a while. Anyways, since it was a short story, it felt infinitesimally more feasible than the long, never-ending void that was Vampire's Ire. I'm going to put a slight content warning for suicidal themes. Think the tragic sapphics of Vivinos videos, which basically it's just girls in love, incredible. Society, not so incredible. Or alternatively, the girls are not coping well. This story follows a sapphic girl named Moreira as she tries and fails to get a job to support her family, turns to the mafia to get money because she needs it, and realizes that, in doing so, she owes a big old debt to the mafia. She also, in this story, reunites with a love interest she knew way back when they were both in school together. That love interest name is Adelina. To clear the debt that Moreira has, she ends up having to kill Adelina's best friend, who Adelina basically treats like a brother. The light in their relationship, the warmth these two have, fades in her love interest's eyes as Adelina grieves. She's lost one of the most important people to her. And the main girl, Moreira, realizing the gravity of what she's done, the regret building and building, points the gun she used to kill at herself. It cuts off from there, but yeah, I was going through a lot. Tragedy is a huge way of coping through that, especially because this is a genre I've always latched myself onto, but it's... A lot of the story deals with the odd in-between of grief and queerness and guilt for poor actions you regret. That all just collapses in on itself, which is very Vividos of me. Even though the execution of its themes are not as perfected as they could have been, there's still a lot I love about this comic. For example, one of my favorite parts of it is near the end, where Moreira is just reflecting about all her thoughts, all the ways that Adelina is different from when she knew her. There's this just really beautiful gradation of color showing the darkness that seeps into the light. It's just, it's so pretty. Also, side note, if you're going to touch frogs, make sure you wear gloves and don't touch them for a long time because the oils on your skin are icky and gross to them. Keep frogs safe. I know this technically is a side tangent. I just thought, since in the comic it's like a thing, I'd point it out. Anyways. The next story is way happier, maybe because it's only one chapter, so I could just stuff tragedy into it as much as I usually do. This one is actually still up online. I have it in the description if you want to read it. It takes inspiration from Southeast Asian and Egyptian mythology. Coward's Bet, the one-shot, is about a girl named Listari who steals from a temple so she can trade what she's stolen for a new leg. Specifically, so she can trade what she's stolen not just for the new leg, but also for what's called a protection sigil. it's this whole thing I was coming up with, and I vaguely remember that it's this thing that would protect at least that part of the body from being bound. And basically being bound means you're stuck in place. Lestari has a goddess named Te aiding her, as the temple straight up neglects Te's image while propping up other deities, with those other deities being her moms? Dun dun dun, question mark, question mark, question mark. That's not something that's mentioned in the actual one-shot, but lore-wise, Te's moms get all the attention, and she gets none because she's perceived as a betrayer within the mythos of this story. In Egyptian mythology, what gets said about a story gets repeated, and is treated as if you are actually cementing whatever tale you've told into reality. So a lot of the time when you're telling stories, you have to say like the actual ending of a story in a way that's incorporated with a happy ending, so that the sad, tragic, bad ending doesn't manifest into real life. From my memory, it deals a lot with these stories always happening cyclically. Everything repeats itself. With that in mind, I put little details hinting at what was going to happen in the one-shot within the backgrounds. See this very blurry Naga chasing someone, a loose scale, and blood dripping off of it. Oh my god, this is so much detail that little to no people are going to notice. Girl! Unfortunately, though, the priests and guards running the temple have, a little bit of issue with Lestari's version of fun, and thus they chase after her. The priest in particular, since he's connected to the temple god, like Lestari is to Te, is able to summon that god because he has more sway, he has more power within the temple, and he's in his element, whatever lore thing I came up with at the time. The summoned god, as Lestari soon finds out, is straight up a Naga, and if you've ever seen any images of Nagas, they are terrifying, even more terrifying when they are chasing after you. Shenanigans happen, but Lestari finds out that the Naga is connected to the priest in the way that mechas are connected to the pilots driving them. You hurt the Naga, then you can hurt the priest. Thus, to escape, she rips off a scale from the Naga, making the priest bleed from their head, and uses powers that she's borrowed from Te, transporting herself back over to the original shopkeep that was telling her that, oh, to pay for this prosthetic and the seal, we need something ancient that we can sell. Well, what's more ancient than a literal Naga scale? Whoa, she's got her money. But Yahoo. It's a bit dense. And there are, I'm sure, some potential plot holes in all that jazz. But you know what? I am absolutely in love with how the coloring turned out here. This is fucking gorgeous. Look at this rendering. This took, like, I kid you not, it was what? 132 hours, I think? Yeah. It checks out. It's dense. I did not need to go this hard on the rendering, but I did. I'm very happy that I did. This universe obviously has a lot of elements that I didn't use, but I'm very happy that I incorporated all of it, and now I have a really solid base to have other characters interact with this world. Also, some extra stuff. I have some designs that I made pre-comic, and basically, look at these cool top scar designs. I loved incorporating them with the priest, which I would love to tell you all about how awesome they look in the comic, except in the comic, he's wearing this whole setup, right, this whole garb, so it covers up the top scars. Alas, 'tis the woes of character design. When I made Coward's Bet, my goals had shifted a lot. Instead of wanting any of the main prizes, I would have genuinely been happy with even an honorable mention or runner-up money. And here's the thing, I didn't win anything, I didn't even get a mention, but I did put a lot of effort into connecting with other creators in the contest, supporting them, and all of us were able to just uplift each other, and genuinely, that's when I realized that that felt better than any of the, like, pitying envy that I had just built up over the previous contests. So, as this one starts up again, I would love to have that happen again, to be able to interact with other creators, to be able to bring other people up and just support each other, because it's genuinely so much more fun than the ick that I felt in the previous times, because I was just so in my head and honestly kind of a little bit selfish. I was a bit ick, so I'm glad I'm not ick. Part 3. Show me your game plan. That's the sound. The current story I am trying to complete is a comic called Reliquary. I've debated calling it Novaturient because it means wanting change, but Reliquary feels more significant to the plot. Reliquary focuses on Rohin. Rohin has a whole thing based on the Niflheim, which are basically half human and half angel characters. They're big, strong, and stolen straight from dubious and non-accurate resources. In this story, they're cannibalistic. She's sheltered in a church school, constantly hungry and trying to stave off that hunger, not knowing it's not something that will simply be sated with mortal food. It's a fun conflict. The story is based off of old Indian boarding schools and how a lot of nuns used to run them. Rohin also knows another character within the story, and if you look at any art of them, you will probably realize that there is a very specific component to their dynamic, of which you could never guess. You could never guess what their dynamic is. Who would know? Historians, maybe. But yeah, I love a bit of creepiness in a comic, and this one certainly has some elements that I could draw from that. I'm aiming for the thriller category / supernatural area for the 2025 webcomic contest, and I don't know, I don't even want to go near these levels of money. My goal is this. I want to create a full slice of comic where the story makes sense, has a sense of mystery, and is aesthetically pleasing without trapping me in rendering hell. I need at least about 3 chapters with 40 colored panels each, and I'll do that just because I would love to have something that I have stuck through creating. I've done a lot of smaller comics, but obviously my big comics, I need to find a workflow that works for me so that I can actually fulfill my dreams instead of pushing them off forever into the ether of pretending they're finished and perfect in my head. One of the things I want to press as well is, for these contests, I never use any of the ideas that are my, quote-unquote star ideas, the ones that I hold really, really, really close to my heart. Like, for example, Amy and Callum's story, it wouldn't even last on Webtoon. Ooh, that would not work out well. But a lot of stories that you think are your best ones, I probably wouldn't put into these kinds of contests just because the rights you give away while entering the contest, not winning, entering the contest, are certainly not ones that I would want my favorite comics to just have taken away. I know that these are probably for marketing purposes and stuff, but just wanted to point it out. I wouldn't put my favorite comics into this. I just put whichever ones are something that I've thought about for a little bit. That's all. Webtoon, please do not sue me. I am simply talking about what are the rules in your contest. I am pointing at the rules in your contest. Honestly, the thing that I'm most excited about is if something happens like the previous contest where a lot of different comic creators all come together and we all just share what we've made and we get to comment on each other's stuff. That's what I'm really excited for. I want to be able to bring so much joy to other people by telling them how much I love aspects of their comic. So yeah, that's what I'm excited to do. You can create just cause, We all work at our own paces, but I know that for me, creating stories is one of the few things that, although it can be incredibly difficult, is also incredibly rewarding. I've wanted to tell stories for a long time, and I know I can do them when I actually commit. Alright, we'll see how it goes. Feel free to tell the world your own storytelling specific agonies. You have heard mine. Bye.